Awesome. Right, looks like we're recording. And all good on our end. So, welcome to everybody that is joining us at the moment. Hopefully, you can hear us loud and clear. If you can just jump in the chat or raise your hand and just let me know that you can hear me all loud, that'd be great. Awesome. Thanks, Angus. Okay, let's just make sure we've got that all good on our end. Okay, coolio. So it looks like we've just got a few more joining and then we will get up and running. If you have any questions, do just chuck it into the chat section at the bottom. All you need to do is just ask us any questions that you've got, and then from there we'll make sure that we can answer it and I guess get you involved as much as you can. Okay, cool. Okay, coolio. Right, so let us get cracking with this now. So obviously we'll go through intros. Joe, if you want to intro yourself.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Tom. So yeah, I'm Joe from Nephos. I founded Nephos about 8 years ago, 7.5 years ago. Focused primarily on business advisory, management accounting work, and utilizing the cloud and technology and power of the cloud to really add huge value to our clients. And yeah, we've grown nicely over the last 7.5, 8 years. And yeah, looking forward to chatting about that journey a little bit today.
Yeah, awesome. And then obviously I am Tom, your host for today. I'll be chatting through with Joe, kind of his journey. My role at iwoca is to work with our accountant introducers and essentially help them understand a little bit about where our solution fits in, and just work with accountants to provide as much value to their clients as possible. I guess, Joe, let's start with where it all started for you, because you've got obviously a bit of a unique story that I think is really interesting. So why don't we start with kind of where you started and how you then went into obviously running the firm?
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, that I guess the unique in one sense side of it is around the fact that I didn't go down the traditional school, A levels, university, accounting qualifications route. I didn't finish my A levels, so I don't have A levels. Therefore, didn't go to university. Therefore, don't have any university degree. And actually, at 20 years old, still had no real clue as to what the plan was, what the journey was going to be, and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I really kind of fell into accounting in one sense. Was working for a firm as really just doing admin-based stuff and office-based stuff, and happened to fall into more accounting work. And once I did that, the journey kind of started, and Nephos kind of then was born quite a few years later after experience and qualifying and whatnot. But yeah, in the early stages of the career, there was no deliberate route to accountancy. It was just a kind of fallen into space, but wouldn't obviously look back now.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's quite interesting because a lot of accountants that I work with started life going into accountancy, worked at maybe a larger firm, got trained, and then went with it. I guess from your route of obviously going through the business side, and actually getting your experience and your learnings, I guess, through industry. How do you think that sets you up for success of where you are today?
I think from my perspective, and this, it's obviously, just want to clarify, this is my opinion. I'm not saying that what I say is obviously correct, but from my perspective, the opinion I have on it is that I believe I'm much more commercially minded in my thinking, and I'm much more, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, but I believe I'm much more client focused, because that has always been my ethos. Because although the client was the company I worked for when I was in industry, ultimately I was delivering to the directors and the shareholders and my management team, and things like that. So presenting numbers, talking through numbers, explaining numbers, giving commentary on where things have gone and why, and also finding out. I spent a lot of time on factory floor with factory workers, understanding why goods weren't coming in, what was happening, where it was happening. So I think, like I said, I personally believe I have a lot to learn from professionally practiced trained accountants, believe me, on how best to run that side of it. But I think my industry focus gives me that commercial aspect that I think some people do lack when they go through that more rigid practice approach.
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm really interested by your story, because, like you said there, right, you started in industry, and then you built this accountancy practice, but to you, it's not an accountancy practice, is it? You view it completely different to and obviously not to say any others are right or wrong, but rather than I guess looking at the year ends, or maybe the traditional model, you kind of come in it with a different element. What, with that in mind, what do you think are the kind of the principles in your business that maybe might be slightly different to a traditional firm?
I think, like I say, our focus is not on the compliance side of it, and obviously we do the compliance because naturally that's what we need to do, but it's not our focus, and we don't spend a lot of our time and energy thinking about the compliance. So what we've done really is automate the compliance, really. So we've automated the bookkeeping process, and we've automated the request for paperwork and request for information, and we don't take paperwork. It's all cloud-based through Receipt Bank and Dex. So I think that element to us is like, we've made that part of the. And when I first started out, and I started this conversation around, we're going to automate that part, the amount of people that turned to me and said, then how are you going to charge your fees if you're not doing the work? And I'm like, no, you're missing the point. We are doing work, and actually we're going to charge more fees because the work we're doing is adding value, and the client's seeing the value. Whereas when you do bookkeeping, the client just sees an invoice, and it comes back to that, between the word cost and the word investment. Compliance is a cost, advisory services is an investment, and I think that's where we, in one sense, our compliance costs are very cheap in comparison to our advisory work, if that makes sense. And that's because we've automated that process, and we've made it a much slicker process, so we've got much more time on the high end stuff.
That's quite an interesting mindset to take that shift, in the sense that compliance is that fee bit, but actually the advisory is the investment. So just to clear on that, so that when you're discussing with clients, and this question I get a lot in my position, is how do we take maybe iwoca Pay or a cash flow service and build that into a value added service, and how do we go to the client and get that charged? What you're kind of saying is, actually, when you're having that conversation with the client, it's not so much about we offer you this service, it's you need to start investing in your business to get to that next point. Is that?
Yeah, and look, you've obviously iwoca. So let's use that as an example. Let's use the iwoca Pay as an example, and actually let's use iwoca as a lending tool. So I've got a good actual kind of real life example from the conversation yesterday. What we're looking for is a solution to a problem, right? So ultimately, what the solution is irrelevant in one sense, as long as it solves the problem that the person has. Yeah. So that solution might not be right for everybody, and that solution might not be the best all-rounder, but it does the job for the client, and it does it properly. So our approach is a kind of fact find approach. We kind of sit there and we say, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? Where do you want to do it? What's the biggest problem in your business today? Payments, receiving payments. Okay, so maybe we need to go down the chaser route. Do we need to go down the iwoca Pay route, etc.? And an example of that was yesterday, right? So, 2 or 3 days ago, a client came to me. major issue with their business. They do takeaway food, and they've had this major issue where they've had to move their kitchen, basically, right? Which is a bit of a nightmare for them. So they've had to shut, can't do it, can't make any food. They've furloughed all their staff, so they're lucky they've got that option still. And then they said to me, look, we're going to be a month before we're up and running in the new place. We need a short-term solution. So we've gone out to capitalise. We've got a short-term solution through iwoca, which we are considering with the client at the moment. And that's quite expensive. The deal that I able is expensive, right? But they've asked minimal questions and they've put an offer out before anybody else. Yeah, so you've got to kind of, that payoff between the cost. The decision now for that client is, do they pay a bit more money or that?
Yeah. I don't know if it's me, but I think I might be losing you a little bit at the moment. Yeah. Yeah. So I think we're back. It cut out a little bit. So
Sorry.
yeah, just okay. Yeah, it looks
go?
like it might be your end, Joe, from what we can see. I guess just kind of, it looks like you're back now. Just to kind of summarize what you were saying, you're, rather than going and saying, right, we're going to do this for you, you're working with clients to problem solve, which is very consultative, right? And I guess that leads me on to the point of, if I'm an accountant, right, and I've started my business a while ago, I've implemented things like Zero, I've implemented other aspects. Where do I go next? How do I get more buy-in from my clients, or how do I get my clients to start using apps more readily without having, I guess, this constant battle with them? And I think your approach is slightly different, right? It's compliance is a must. That's like the entry level for your service, and that's what we get, as where the Nephos service is actually, we're problem solvers for your business rather than being an accountancy service. Would that summarize?
Yeah, and I think the word, the word business advisor gets bandied around too much. But what I mean by that is we are kind of like the go-to people. You want to come and sit across the table from me, and you want to have a conversation, and you want to tell me what you like, everything you want to tell me about your business, and we'll sit here and we'll listen and we'll help you make a plan for that. It's kind of that financial planning piece, and similar to the way I think an IFA should work, is that they should sit down and listen and then give you solutions to what you're talking about. Now, quite often they'll go out and sell a product before they've even thought of the problem. And I think accountants will go out and sell a back return, or sell's the wrong word, but you know what I mean? Like, or put the latest app in front of their client because that's what the app provider has told them that they should do. But actually, they haven't listened to the problem that is there. So, yeah, like you say, we're not an accountancy practice. We are more of a consultative business advisory practice, where our focus is, our main core is around accounting, obviously, but actually our core is around helping that business understand their numbers, grow their business, and ultimately make more money.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, I guess, just to chime in here, obviously for all of our attendees that are here, do utilize that chat function and that Q&A function. If there's a specific thing that you want to know or you want to quiz, do chime in there and we will answer those points there. I guess, Joe, for me, what I'm really keen to know is, you deliver this, I guess, like this amazing business advisor, right? And that's what I know you for. But to get to that point, you have to have this baseline, and that comes from improving client data, starting with this customer service approach. What are the fundamental apps and softwares that you use in the most minimalist state, that if I'm an accountant, if I implement these and get these right, that's going to make the next conversation really easy?
So our core stack, if you like, is Zero, 100% Zero, 100% receipt bank decks. So that is our first starting point. And this isn't going to sound arrogant, but I don't mean it to. If you don't use either of those, or you're not willing to move to either of those, then you can't be a client of ours. And I said that sounds arrogant, but and believe me, we're not trying to cut people off. We want as many clients as we can get. So, but what we're saying is, if you want the value that we say that we can deliver, the only way I believe we can really offer that true value is by using the software that we know best and systemizing our processes. Like I said earlier, systemizing that bookkeeping process, systemizing the paper request process, etc., etc. That is what is making our advisory services much better, much stronger. So they're the two core ones. From a practice management perspective, we use Carbon. I've done a couple of webinars with them just to talk to people about how we use that. We're really big with Pleo. We think, again, Pleo as a solution offers significantly more than just an expense management solution now. It's actually kind of much more of a whole spend management solution than an expense management. So again, I really like their product because it does some really great stuff. We'll use Chaser to chase invoices. You guys, iwoca Pay, to collect payments where required, etc. So I'd say they're the real core ones. In terms of the kind of advisory piece, we do use Clarity and we use Fathom. Clarity is used more for the kind of the trainees in the business, the ones that are still working through their AAT and ACCA, just to give them a little bit of clarity into the numbers when they're talking to clients. And then Fathom from a board pack production perspective is up there as well. So it's they're kind of really the core ones. There aren't a significant amount more than that. But there's a reason for that. There's loads out there, but there's a reason we really focus on those ones.
Yeah, okay, it makes a lot of sense. And just question in my head, how often do you speak to your clients?
Me personally, or the business?
Just the business.
I would say it depends on the package they join us on. So we're a fixed package based business. In fact, we're a subscription based business effectively. So you sign up to a subscription, a bit like you would with a software provider, and you up and down that subscription as and when you need to for your business, right? So if you sign up to our quarterly package, which is our minimum, so there's no longer period of quarterly, then ultimately you're probably going to have a conversation every quarter. If you sign up to our monthly package, you're going to get a monthly conversation, and so it really depends on the client. But also, a client might be on the quarterly package but going through a really difficult time or a really interesting time or whatever, and we will go outside of that package functionality in order to really deal with that client at that moment. So the nice thing for us is, because we're 100% zero receipt bank, we're very often flicking between people's receipt bank and zero and whatnot, even if we did their account last week or did some paperwork last week and they're a quarterly payer, we can still look at them and jump on it and notice things. And that's where Clarity, with something like a portfolio view, where you can really have a quick view of all your clients. So it's hard to say how often, because we have no kind of fixed process apart from within the package, because it's not about the rigid package, it's about the overall service. And so we will always jump in and have those conversations where relevant.
Yeah, okay, that's quite interesting. So it kind of feels that what you're saying there is, I guess, at if we were to put a bare minimum on it, you're speaking to clients quarterly.
A bare minimum, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But I would say on average, our client will deal with us, even on a quarterly package, will deal with us probably once a month at the very least.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty interesting to hear. So, you're at this point where you're running this business. The cloud accounting, the app stack, that comes as standard. Your customers come straight in, they go through that, they're bought into that, and they're bought into this value-added service that you bill as a subscription. I'm guessing, obviously, it hasn't always been like that. What are some of the challenges that you've faced? And I guess with looking at clients and internally, what are one of the two biggest things that you've overcome and learned from?
So I think, don't rush into something flashy too quickly. When you're looking at that client, what are you about, I think, is the important point here. If you're about that client-centric approach, which, like I say, I believe we are, the app itself doesn't matter. Do you see what I mean? Like that's the really important part for me, is you've got to find the solution to the problem, and it doesn't matter what the solution is. Like I said earlier, like the solution can be whatever it wants. So what you don't want to do is rush into the latest flashy thing just because it looks good, when actually it doesn't solve the problems that it can provide. And I also, I don't look at cost as such, because again, I don't think an app in many senses should be a cost. I believe it should be an investment. I believe it should be an enabler to make things better, right? So I also won't go with someone just because they're like, you can use our software free for 12 months, because that isn't why I'm not using them. I'm not using them because I don't see the value in their product, and me not paying for it doesn't change that. Do you see what I mean? So I think there's a few key points around: don't rush to the latest thing. Make sure you know what your solution you're trying to solve before you jump into it, and don't just jump into something because they're giving you a free trial, or a long free period. And really do your research. And also, every app that we use on clients, I say every, that's a bit unfair, but we've got a manufacturing client. We don't use some of their manufacturing apps, obviously, because we don't do manufacturing, but ultimately every core app that we offer, we use. So we know how it works. We know how it, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, you're using it internally, so you're putting yourself through the experience that your customers or clients are going through, so that I guess maybe you can relate and have more of an in tuned conversation.
Yeah. So when they say to me, I was trying to use my Pleo card the other day and this happened, I can go, oh, you know why that is, don't you? It's because of this. And they go, how do you know that? And I'm like, because I had the same problem happen to me. And I think that's really, like, I think from a client perspective, I think it's hugely valuable. I think they just look at you and they go, oh wow, so you're not just selling me this latest bit of tech, you are actually invested in it, you use it, you believe in it. And I'm like, yeah. So I'm at the moment, for example, Pleo have just released a bills functionality, which is basically a receipt bank effectively type product. But you can also make the payments directly through Pleo. So, we're talking to them about rolling out to clients, and I said, yeah, cool, no problem, but I'm going to be using it myself first. So I'm using it at the moment on Nephos to test it out. I paid an invoice through it yesterday just to test that out, etc. And I found some problems with it. So now I can go back to them and say, here's the problems I found. And that's not a client telling me, that's me saying it. So it's really important, I think, that you really understand the products that you're offering. And I appreciate not everyone can test everything all the time, but I really think it's important that you, especially those core ones, that you understand the flaws that it might have, because everything has flaws.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of leads me into the question that I've had around time management. One of the biggest things with accountants is time, right? In a very broad nutshell, almost your time is kind of what you're selling to the client, right? You're helping the client with their forecast or their board pack. Like, it's your time. How do you manage your time now versus how was it managed when you first started?
Yeah, I think again the challenge for me when I first started was everyone came to me because everyone saw me, So and I had minimal support staff and whatnot, and again we weren't 100% cloud based when we first started. So I think from that perspective, it was a case of, it wasn't so much me managing time, it was more the time managing me. It was more the workload was managing me. Whereas now we're much more rigid in our, so we've got time blocking. So for example, a couple of members of the team have had a busy period of accounts prep. They've got an account blackout, they basically called it, where there's 3 or 4 hours of a couple of days a week where they have their headphones in, nobody talks to them, they don't answer the phone, they're literally just smashing through accounts. So it's, for us, it's all about that efficiency piece, so that we can get all of that stuff done, so that we can then focus on the client conversations. And we make sure, when we book in a client conversation, we're booking in an hour and we're booking in 15-20 minutes leeway at the end of it, that if the conversation goes on, we're not necessarily cutting the person off halfway through a really important conversation. So I think it's, time blocking has been critical to me in terms of like how I've been able to manage kind of spinning different plates, as I'm sure we'll come on to with the different ventures we've got at the end. But I think the key for me is like automate the crap. I've said this before, automate the stuff that doesn't have the value, automate the stuff at the bottom that gives you the time back to go and really offer advice or support or guidance or but also the flip side of this is if your ethos is load of compliance work, spend the rest of the time playing golf, that's absolutely cool. Like that's great. Like if that's the business you want to build, like crack on, but still do what I just said, still automate the stuff at the bottom, because that's going to give you that time back that you need to spend with the kids, play golf, whatever it may be. So I think it doesn't matter what you want to do with that bit of time over here that's freed up by the automation, as long as you know what that is and you want to go and get that, then I think that's how you manage it, is that time blocking piece and the automation piece.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess just from my perspective, obviously you started the business very much you, right? And the clients were dealing with you, they come to you, and then you begin to obviously add these other layers in there. How did those, I guess, how did you approach those conversations with the clients? Almost kind of saying, let's move away from directly coming everything through to you to multiple layers. How did you approach that?
Yeah, and that's a real challenge, and even now that's a challenge. Even now I have conversations with I talked about my mobile actually to someone the other day, and I talked about maybe changing my mobile number, because like too many people have my mobile number, and actually I'm doing them a crap service because they ring me and I don't answer. I mean, you've experienced that yourself.
Yes.
So, and it's not because I don't want to talk to people, it's because I'm in calls or meetings doing things like this. My phone's on do not disturb now, so people could be ringing me and it would be pinging it back to them saying I'm not available. So the way I sell it to people is ultimately Nephos as a business wants to provide the best possible service to you as the client that we possibly can. And we're not going to provide that best quality service if you try and get hold of me. And people forget that, clients, they think that the best service they're going to get from Nephos is from me. But actually that's the worst service in one sense they're going to get, because I'm not readily available. I'm always in and out of meetings. I'm always on calls. So actually the best time these guys are going to get is by speaking to my team, who are readily available, who are in the numbers regularly. I had a client ring me the other day, X, Y, and Z question about his account, and I said, that's great, I'll look into this for you, but I'll need to go talk to one of the team, because I didn't do the work. So I think that I've kind of spun it on its head a bit and said, like, no, you think you're getting the best service by coming to me, but actually you're not. And I think a lot of business owners would be scared to say you're not getting the best service if you come to the owner, because they'd be like, oh, I can't say that, because then they'll think that my business is crap. But actually that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that's not my job. The customer service piece is the job of the team in the office that are kind of day to day working on that client. So I think that's really how, and I'm honest about it. I don't sell the dream. When I first started, so I'm rambling a little bit now, but when I first started, I heard a lot from people that came to us that they went to a bigger firm or whatever, which wasn't hard because we'd only just started, and they were really frustrated that they got sold the dream by the partner and then they never spoke to the partner ever again. And I was kind of like, wow, that's really bad. Like, how dare they? And then I started growing my business, and I was kind of like, wow, I can kind of understand how that happens. But the way I do it is I'm just honest about that at the start. I don't tell people they're going to get me. I tell people they might not. So yeah, for me, it's about honesty and integrity, and being upfront about why they would be better off dealing with the rest of the team, rather than hiding from it because you think it might upset people. Embrace it and explain to them why it's a positive for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's quite a powerful snippet, I guess, from looking on the outside aspect. They're not the client isn't buying Joe David accountant. They're buying the service Nephos provides, which is what you're saying. So I guess if I say, for example, I'm a one-man band, right? It's just me. Because you've got, so how many staff you got now, Joe?
9.
9. So you've got a bit of infrastructure that sits behind it. You can add that. If I was running a practice and it was just myself, I'd probably set up maybe like a general email database, maybe look at a virtual like receptionist, organizer to front all of that, and almost add like, it's kind of like that fake it till you make it, add that extra element, just that one extra barrier. So when I've got that accountant time blocked out, I'm not going to get disturbed. It's going to get picked up elsewhere. I think that's how I would approach that. how would you approach it if you were that one-man band? Would it be similar, completely different?
Yeah, no, I would completely similar. So for an example, I've got, we'll talk about what, the crypto side of things later, but we've launched a separate brand, right? And we've got separate email addresses for this separate brand. Now, did a webinar last week about that brand, and I didn't want, there was 300 people on that webinar. I didn't want those 300 people having my personal email address because I knew I wouldn't be able to service that very well, right? So we've got a more generic email address, which is what I gave to people. And then when people emailed into that email address, it was handled centrally by me or two others, which meant that they would always get a response from somebody in a timely manner, rather than them all firing into my inbox and me being unable to respond to everybody. So yeah, you're right. The problem with VAs is they're expensive, or I say they're expensive. They're perceived to be expensive because of the hourly rate that they're able to demand. So many startups or whatever won't want to pay that money because they won't see the value, because they feel like they're just getting rid of the admin tasks. So I disagree. I think there's a huge amount of value in that. And actually, my second hire was an admin PA type role, because that I value my time and I value the time that I can give to my clients. So we've been very focused on that, and I think if people were able to go down the VA route, great, but otherwise just set up a separate mailbox and manage it through there, and at least have a bit of comfort that when you're, like you say, when you're focusing on your accounts work, you're focusing on your accounts work, and then when you're ready to go back to your kind of admin based email stuff, go through that central mailbox over there.
Yeah, great. I think Tim has got a question for you just there, just asking what email software do you use? Is it a ticketing system like Freshdesk?
So interesting you say that, actually, Tim. So we use Carbon. So I don't know if you're familiar with Carbon or not, but all our emails basically sit in a triage in Carbon, and then they get assigned to either myself or other people in the team off the back of that. Obviously, we all have our individual mailboxes in Carbon, but then you can kind of assign them. You can tag people in them. So I could say, at so and so, can you respond to this client? And you can at the whole team. So I can say at everyone, who can ring this guy back for me, please, or whatever it may be, right? And then that all then automatically tags into the client and stuff. But the ticketing system is really interesting. So again, I keep mentioning that we'll talk about it in the future, but the crypto stuff that we're doing, it's very complicated. There's lots of individual questions and stuff that we need to give out, right? So we are actually talking about using a live chat and a ticketing system through our website for that business, because ultimately, just reading Tim's reply. Ultimately, that's how we'll deliver the best service, is by being able to prioritize the tickets and a ticketing system. But I don't know many accountants that do a ticketing system. I'd be interested to hear of the success stories that people have had using it. Because it is something we're considering.
Yeah, awesome. And I guess let's lead on to where are you going next, right? What is I guess it's maybe more than Nephos Group now, but where are you going next?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, there's more than just the initial accountancy brand now. And so for us, we recently this year we've been quite busy behind the scenes. So we first of all, we launched a mortgages arm to the business, which is a kind of a JV, if I'm honest, with a mortgage advisor, but under the Nephos brand. And by that, we just want to be able to, again, add that kind of holistic overview for all our clients. Like we can now make a client mortgage efficient and tax efficient at the same time, because in the amount of times you make someone tax efficient, they're not mortgage efficient, or the other way around, they need to be mortgage efficient, so they're not tax efficient. Like with us being able to do that in-house, that really adds huge value. So that's one arm that we just wanted to plug on a little bit, just to add a bit of value to the clients. But then the big piece is our launch of our brand Myna, MYNA, which is our cryptocurrency specialist arm. Where we focus on individual taxation on cryptocurrency, supporting businesses accepting cryptocurrency payments, accounting for cryptocurrency payments, And also, we've got a couple of cryptocurrency exchanges that we work with. So again, managing that process is quite difficult. Managing the paperwork and the transaction base for something like that is very difficult. So that's a real exciting venture that we've just launched, taking up quite a lot of time, as you can imagine. But also the kind of fourth arm to that, if you like, is supporting accountants. You know, and it's funny because when I first started talking about supporting accountants, I thought no one will want to work with me, and then I thought, well, hang on a second, we outsource our R&D because we at the moment don't have R&D in house, and I don't even blink an eyelid about outsourcing R&D because we don't do it. So why would I think about, you know? And so it's the same here. Like, you know, a lot of accountants have reached out to us already and said, look, one day maybe, but today no, we don't do it. So please, can you do it, Joe? So that's really exciting. That's the thing that's taking my attention. The majority of my attention at the moment is really getting that brand off the ground and trying to support as many people as we can.
Yeah. So what I'll do now is I'll just quickly put into the chat. Here we are. So that's obviously the landing page for Miner. So anybody here can go and sign up, and I say sign up, they can drop their email and name to you to have a chat about Miner. So how exactly are you working with accountants on the Miner front? What are you doing to support them?
So what we're really doing is saying that, like I say, I use R&D as an example because that's what a lot of people would outsource. So what we're saying is, are you able to do that in-house, as in the crypto stuff? Are you able to support your client? Do you understand the rules? Do you understand the complexities? Are you, and it comes back to that piece around being invested in it, right? And being invested in the software that we use and whatnot. We're hugely invested in the crypto space, not necessarily financially, but in terms of like what our understanding is, what we're trying to work, the people we're working with, we're members of Crypto UK, who are the kind of unofficial trade body of crypto in the UK. So we're sitting on HMRC roundtables, we're sitting on regulatory roundtables with FCA. We're therefore getting in front of not just the FCA, but we're then getting in front of really interesting people that are really driving these conversations around how crypto and blockchain can grow in the UK. So what I'm saying is, if you want to do it yourself, Mr. Accountant, that's absolutely fine. Like, I'm not trying to steal work from other people. Like, if you're happy and comfortable doing it, like, please do. But what I'm saying is, if you're not happy, comfortable doing it, and you want someone that is embracing it, is involved in it, and is really taking it to the next, trying to help take it to the next level, then we're there to support you. And we can do that either through a white label approach. So you could come to us and say, right, Joe, this is the bit of work I'm going to charge the client. So we'll charge you £1,000 for argument's sake, and you can then go and charge the client whatever you want. You know, if you can charge £2,000, crack on, like that, that's absolutely fine. And as far as the client's concerned, it's all you, but we've provided the advice at the back end. Or we can take the referral completely, and do the work directly. Or again, we could also do the calcs, send you the calcs, and then you could do the tax return. So similar way that R&D works at the moment, we do the tax return for the business, but we get the R&D calculations from who we refer to, and we enter those into the software. So there's a few different ways we can do it, and we're also we're a new business brand. We're open to suggestions and ways of working. Whatever really works for the accountant works for us. We just want to support the adoption and the growth of crypto and blockchain in the UK.
Yeah, nice, awesome. Well, the link to that obviously is in the chat. From I guess from my perspective, from an iwoca Pay perspective, next week our very own James is going to be running a webinar on iwoca Pay, which is essentially the B2B payments landscape is broken at the moment. There's this big issue with manual payments, and that's why a lot of businesses are getting paid late. iwoca Pay is getting people paid quicker and is solving that. What we will do is James will be reaching out to those that came here, and we'll be sending you an email so you can register for that webinar on iwoca Pay next week. I guess, Joe, whilst you're here, you're a iwoca Pay partner. What about iwoca Pay? What grips you about iwoca Pay?
I think, like you say, that the payment process is broken. I think people think that it's it's the chasing of invoices that's the problem, which I agree is an element of the problem. But also, people don't then think about, well, why, we can chase as much as we want, but if someone hasn't got the money, or if someone hasn't got the ability right at that moment to do what they need to do, they can't do it. Do you know what I mean? So we can chase as much as we want. That doesn't mean we're going to get paid. So I think the really important thing for me on this is that it offers that thing to say, right, okay, why aren't you paying? Come on, be honest with me, why aren't you paying? Okay, I'm not paying because of financial issues, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so what if we can spread that payment? Oh, you can do that. Yeah. Okay, cool. Now they can pay you. Now you know that there's you're going to get paid, and they've got that facility, if you like, to spread that payment. So I think that for me, that's also really important. As a don't just chase. Give us, again, comes back to that solutions thing. What's the problem for the client? The problem isn't that they need chasing. The problem is they need a solution. They need something to help them pay, because they're not in the position to do it in the way that you would normally do it. And secondly, the pay now thing, I think, again, how much of a pain is it when someone rings you up or sends you an email and says, can you pay this right now, please, because I need to do X, Y, and Z. We've got a client that does photography and video shooting, and they quite often have models or props or stuff like that. And quite often these people want to be paid up front for the shoot. And we actually handle the payment process for a lot of these people, for this client. And they'll email us and they'll say, can you make this payment? And then an hour later they'll say, can you make this payment? You just book this next thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got to keep logging onto the bank. So I think that piece around me being able to pay it through the QR code means that you don't have to keep logging on and logging off and logging on and logging off. And I think that's really important as well. If more people adopted that approach, the payment process would be much simpler for everybody involved in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. I always talk with for those that aren't au fait with Pay Now. Pay Now essentially enables a business or even a customer to pay an invoice using a QR code, which you scan on your phone, pops open up your banking app, and you just hit transfer. All that information is pre-filled for you. I think the reason why that's so powerful, and probably when we look at what you're doing, you said about automating the low level, right? You said that earlier, and that's like kind of the keys to getting more time and being able to offer more value. We're essentially automating the bank transfer and removing those manual steps. And we're also automating, I guess, the ability to spread the cost. We're continually removing those manual steps, which means that it's easier for businesses to get paid, which is the solution, right? It's if you're not getting paid, it's mainly because maybe people can't afford it, so we can spread that across, or there's too many barriers and manual steps to getting paid right now, so it's getting put off. That's where we have to Pay Now. But again, if you want to find out more about the webinar that we've got coming up, that'll be, like I said, with James. He's going to talk you through the kind of whole the payments problem, what iwoca Pay looks like. We will ping you out an email for you to jump onto that. I think we've probably covered a lot, Joe. We talked about your journey from working in an industry to growing a business, not an accountancy firm, automating the low level, and just really blocking out the times to get work done and adding those step processes. Unless anybody else has got any other questions or any comments, I guess we'll wrap up there. Joe, is there anywhere else people can find you if they want to connect?
So I'm just because Tim mentioned about carbon, I'm just going to drop in a YouTube link in the chat. It's not the most exciting watch, but if you want to skip on a lot of the rubbish at the start, Tim, on this YouTube video, I do go into carbon a little bit. I actually go into our system and show you how we use it a bit. So if you used it a while ago, I know it's changed significantly since 2 or 3 years ago. So yeah, I don't know if that's useful to anyone, but I've just dropped the YouTube link to that webinar I did in there as well. So yeah, if you want to reach out to me, LinkedIn is the best place. If you want to learn more about Miner, as Tom said, click on the link that we've stuck in the chat box and drop us a line, and we'll be able to have a chat with you. Miner's on Twitter, Nephos is on Twitter. So yeah, but the main place, if you want to chat to me, reach out on LinkedIn and yeah, go from now. I'm a very open book, so anyone that wants to chat, just reach out and have a conversation.
Yeah, awesome, brilliant. Well, look, appreciate everyone's time. Appreciate your time, Joe. And like I said, if there's any other questions, we'll hang about for a little bit. Otherwise, thank everyone for attending. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.